Lucas, welcome to Curious Conversations.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming on.
What do you think is happening in the world for people to be so sick these days?
Wow. I mean, there's many different elements there that would be contributing to that overall lack of vitality and yeah, a lot of people nowadays are suffering from these chronic diseases, things like PCOS, insulin resistance, like diabetes, different things like that. And I think it really comes back to the fact that there's not enough emphasis on the prevention and education. It's more so like suppress symptoms.
Yes.
Which I'm sure you can both, relate to in some way. But I think, nowadays we're seeing a number of people just really struggling with managing their symptoms, or they're being prescribed one medication and another medication for another to manage the symptoms or the side effects of that first medication.
And never getting down to the root cause.
Exactly. And that's
Yeah.
actually what really led me down the path of naturopathy.
Yeah.
Like studying, understanding, because at the time I was working in my dad's pharmacy.
Oh, so you
Oh,
got
wow.
a
So you got a
pharmaceutical
background,
background.
okay.
Yeah. So, and it's funny we're here at Chemist Way.
Yeah.
It wasn't a Chemist Way.
Yeah.
But, I had experience as the vitamin specialist.
Okay.
So I started realizing the impact that, correcting vitamin D, what impact that can have on immune outcomes and, correcting zinc status and vitamin B12 and iron.
What's the difference between a vitamin and a different supplement, say zinc?
Yep.
Why would someone take a vitamin D? Why would someone take a zinc supplement?
Yeah. So the way that I typically prescribe or recommend vitamins and supplements is I like to use objective data. So looking at their blood work, doing a blood test to first of all identify if the person even needs that vitamin D. So for example, some people, if they go out in the sun all summer, let's say they're putting on sunscreen, and then they at the end of the summer, they get their vitamin D checked. For some people, that's not enough to meet the upper end of the reference range for vitamin D. So that's where supplementing with vitamin D can be beneficial, and putting them into the upper level of that reference range can minimize the severity of getting the flu or different illnesses and sicknesses, autoimmune diseases, things like that. So whereas if you look at zinc, for example, or magnesium is another great example, because I'm sure most people listening to this podcast probably use magnesium.
Yep.
One of those minerals, so for example, magnesium, it's very unlikely that someone's going to reach toxicity levels if they're using.
Okay.
It just really depends upon the exact mineral or vitamin, and also blood testing and objective data.
Okay.
That sort of stuff.
What in your studies are women most deficient in?
Definitely iron.
Okay.
I was going to say, I'm currently pregnant, as everyone knows that listens to this, and I did a blood test recently and it came back with super low iron.
Yeah.
I was like, I would not be surprised.
And your typical symptoms would be fatigue.
Tired.
Yeah.
Dizzy a little
sleeping
bit.
long,
Yeah.
Lightheaded.
Yeah.
Going from sitting to standing, you get a bit dizzy and stuff.
Yeah. Why is that with females? Is that got to do with our menstrual cycle?
Yeah, so the main difference between men and women in that regard is women menstruate.
Yeah.
So they're physically losing blood. They're going to lose a little bit of iron, and also typically more women tend to gravitate towards a vegan or vegetarian diet. And this can be, somewhat problematic for some because, the absorption of iron from these vegan vegetarian sources are just not as optimal as say compared to red meat.
Yeah.
Or some organ meats, but it's a really common problem.
Yeah.
Low in iron.
Being low in iron, does that affect anything else in the hormonal system? Does it affect serotonin? Does it affect dopamine? Is that why women might be more anxious these days?
Yeah. So this is I'm very passionate about understanding the links between how iron. So with iron, for example, one thing I learned early on was if you have low iron, you have a poor ability to actually create cortisol. And that is linked in heavily with the symptoms of adrenal fatigue.
Yep.
So when you hear about people saying they've got adrenal fatigue and they're just they're not they don't have that energy to get up and go in the morning. A lot of the time that can be due to like just low baseline levels of cortisol. And in that low cortisol state, that can really affect their oomph, like they need a coffee to get going, things like that. But also if we look at iron and its relationship with like dopamine, again, I was interested to learn about how iron is like a cofactor to actually convert some amino acids, tyrosine, into dopamine. And so if we look at the consequences of low dopamine, I mean, we're looking at someone who's like, low
pleasure.
mood, can't experience pleasure, just lack of motivation, lack of drive. Yeah, so it's heavily linked in with like neurotransmitters as well.
I think that's not really probably understood by the masses, that iron and cortisol, we all think
Yeah,
we
I
should
had no
have
idea.
low cortisol. We think having high cortisol is really bad because that means you're really stressed. So I think it's all this misinformation that low in iron is not linked to anything else, or cortisol is bad. Cortisol's not bad, is it?
That's a great point you
That's a
make.
good question because I don't know that answer.
Well, typically speaking, like people like to think of these hormones like in extremes and like they classify it. Like you said, Sarah, cortisol is a hormone that there's a sweet spot. If it's too high, you've got issues. If it's too low, you've got issues. The same can be said about pretty much all the hormones in the body.
Yeah.
There's a sweet spot. Most people, when they're looking at like optimizing body composition, they want to get leaner, drop body fat. Typically speaking, we want lower levels of cortisol because cortisol can put the handbrakes on fat burning to a degree. It can inhibit lipolysis and disrupt thyroid hormones. But typically the way to like bring down cortisol, we should be doing that in the evening. So this is by, making sure your room's dark, wearing those blue light blocking.
Oh, yeah.
Or the biohacking
Yeah.
tricks.
Yeah. This is where I sort of come in and like, manipulate their hormones and stuff. So like, like you said, with cortisol, there's definitely a sweet spot. And it's one of the hardest ones to test through a blood test.
Is it? So
Yeah.
how do you know if you've got not the right levels of cortisol?
So the most advanced way to assess it is through a Dutch test.
Which is the saliva.
Yes. So
Okay.
it's like a saliva and urinary. So
Okay.
it does both. And it's just the most advanced way to get like a good snapshot because cortisol does fluctuate a lot throughout the day. Like let's say you've woken up in the morning and you've found out some bad news, like your cortisol is going to spike.
Right, yeah.
Let's say you've had a pretty relaxing day, you've just come out of the sauna, like I'm in the spa, it's like in the afternoon, you're just like feeling relaxed, your cortisol levels have probably dropped back down. So there's also a really important relationship between cortisol and melatonin.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so for those listening in, melatonin is the master sleep hormone. That facilitates the onset of sleep and the quality of our sleep. Cortisol actually has an inhibitory effect on melatonin production.
So if you're highly stressed, you won't be producing melatonin.
Yeah, spot on. So and that's going to compromise their sleep quality. And also, let's not forget that melatonin is actually one of the strongest antioxidants in the body.
So then if this is where it gets confusing for everyday people say don't supplement melatonin, but then if you supplement melatonin, wouldn't that bring down your cortisol?
So this is it's pretty heavily debated whether or not like supplementing melatonin will stop your body's natural production. I personally think if you're using less than 1 milligram, that's safe for like an ongoing basis. But again, like I'd rather try and make my own melatonin than supplement with melatonin. And that's where we can, make sure we're sleeping in a dark environment, wearing an eye mask, like wearing those blue blockers, consuming like kiwi fruit before bed.
What does kiwi fruit before bed do for sleep?
So there's a pretty cool study in healthy adults where they consume 2 kiwi fruit.
I think I've heard this.
Yeah, there's a few fitness influencers who've spoken about this. Like 2 kiwi fruits, like 90 minutes before bed, can help with both sleep onset and also sleep duration.
Interesting. Because I know kiwi fruit's quite good for your digestive system as well.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And really high in vitamin C.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you look at that there, like vitamin C has a cortisol inhibitory effect. So it actually lowers cortisol.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, supplementing with like 2 grams of vitamin C can actually lower cortisol.
How many, like, what's too many supplements for someone? Because as you've spoken a lot about supplements, I'm like, oh my God, I need to go home, take vitamin C, need to do this, need to this. How much is too much?
Well, ultimately, it depends upon like a person's goals. Like,
Okay.
I don't know if you heard of Brian Johnson, the anti-aging.
No.
No,
He's
but
like-
you got me at anti-aging.
He's like, he's on a mission. He's on a quest to like reverse his biological age.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
He spent over $2 million on his body to try and do
Gee.
this. So he's like a freak when it comes to like anti-aging stuff. He's taking about 80 different supplements.
A day.
Yeah.
Wow.
One that comes to my mind when it comes to anti-aging is NMN.
Yeah.
Yeah, you talk about NMN. That's the stuff that Crosby talks about, isn't it?
Yeah.
NMN.
And that Australian professor at Harvard.
David Sinclair.
Yes.
Yeah.
Supplements, what is NMN? And do supplements like that actually help in anti-aging?
So NMN stands for nicotinamide mononucleotide, and it's actually produced by the breakdown of vitamin B3. So if you look into your B complex, if you're taking a multivitamin or a B complex, you'll see vitamin B3 as niacin, and niacin actually helps to produce this NMN in the body. So most people, everyone's producing NAD,
Yep.
which is the anti-aging, longevity molecule, and it's associated with more energy.
I've had a bag of NAD
Yeah.
before. Like, give me that
Like
good
Yeah.
juju.
Like she had
Yes.
a drip.
Yes. Thanks for clarifying that.
And how did you feel after the?
When it was going in, it was a shock to the system. But
What do you mean a shock to the system?
it was, I felt ill.
Nauseous?
Yeah,
Or-
yep. And then afterwards, cleared me out.
Yeah.
Greatest
Yeah.
poo I've done in my life.
Yep.
And I slept better.
How long did it last for?
I'd say like a month, a good
Oh,
month.
wow. That's great.
Yeah. So this so the whole premise behind it is you can take NMN in supplemental form.
Yeah.
Orally, which is great. You can take it in liquid form, like you can get an injection, like IV, intravenous. In terms of the subjective effects, most people typically say they experience more energy, more drive, more clarity. From an anti-aging perspective, anything that increases NAD is going to be, beneficial because it hits one of the hallmarks of aging, which is like helps clear out like senescent cells and things like that. But if the everyday person is listening to this podcast and they want to subjectively give it a shot and try NMN, most people can typically like give it a crack, like 30 or 60 capsules, like 2 months supply. Just try it and see how you feel. It's going to be like similar to creatine,
Yep.
I've never taken creatine.
Damien takes it, but I don't know what it does.
But I've been seeing females should be taking creatine, and it's actually really beneficial. But from my perspective, I've always just seen gym bros take it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it an energy? So what is creatine?
Yeah, so the reason why it's really popular now is because creatine has some very impressive research about supporting brain health
Oh, wow.
and having like neuroprotective qualities, assisting with staving off, like preventing cognitive decline. And the reason for that is you don't even have to use that much. We're
Oh,
looking at about 1 to 2 grams of creatine monohydrate.
Which would be how much? Like a tablespoon?
It'd be
Like a scoop.
like maybe a quarter of a teaspoon.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So,
so
not much at all.
I thought wow.
It'd be less than 5 cents a day.
And when should you take creatine during the day? Because I thought it was like a pre-gym thing. Is
Yeah.
that not right?
It's completely.
Okay.
It definitely will. Like the original use for creatine was around building muscle, having more strength in the gym. Like it will do that. There's a lot of. It's probably one of the most well-researched sports supplements.
Okay.
This creatine monohydrate. If you take it before the gym, like most people typically experience, like they can train harder for longer. They feel more. They actually hold a bit more water retention as well. That's part of its like benefit. But yeah, in terms of the new research around it helping with brain health, particularly for the older generations, like 60s,
Wow.
70s, 80s, it's really impressive in that regard.
Would it help someone already on a cognitive decline, like experiencing dementia? Would it slow the process of that?
I think there's definitely a a possibility for it, you know, being a potential candidate. Like obviously, there's probably better compounds than creatine for that.
Okay.
What would the better, because I'm experiencing this at the moment with my dad. He doesn't have dementia, but he's been having transverse
amnesia?
where he forgets stuff for like 24 hours. He's had it twice. It's terrifying and it upsets me. But what would some of the things, could he take something like that, or what are the other things he could take that's obviously not going to like hurt his heart? Like,
So there's actually one supplement that I was actually recommending quite a lot when I was working in my dad's pharmacy.
okay.
And it's over the counter. You don't need a prescription. It's a combination of specific B vitamins, omega-3s, and there's one ingredient that I'm a huge fan of. It's called uridine.
Okay.
And uridine is only found in breast milk and broccoli and a few other sources. And uridine has an amazing effect on cognitive function. And I literally used that for like a year and a half straight throughout all my university degree, and I honestly had so much motivation.
Like a natural Adderall?
It helps you get shit done.
Yeah.
Really?
Okay, concentration.
I'll have to write it down after.
Yeah.
Because if there's anything that's going to help my dad's brain health, I'm like 100%. Until this conversation, I've never actually thought of supplementing or anything like that.
Yeah, well, the product's called Suvenaid.
Okay.
Like it's SOUVENAID. So it's like Suvenaid, and it's for early onset symptoms. So it's not for like at the end stage.
Yeah.
You got to get onto it early.
Okay. Interesting.
So for optimal health, we're looking at, what would you say your big key points are for people to look at so they can then start looking where they manipulate with supplements?
Yeah, so this is, I guess, like one of the biggest traps with like the space that I operate in is because I'm in the biohacking space. I'm very this is like the 1%er. Whereas like if we look at the principles for like the majority of the population, which is like just focus on getting high quality sleep, eating a very balanced diet or highly nutritious diet, making sure we're exercising, at least an hour or 30 to 45 minutes a day, doing some form of zone 2 cardio, combining that with like weight training, ensuring we're not deficient in any of these vitamins and minerals, because that's going to compromise energy and vitality, fertility as well in a massive way. That's, once somebody feels like they've mastered those areas, that's when they can like step into like the biohacking space, which is like, oh, what's this like supplement going to do? It's going to assist with like memory performance or like minimize, procrastination.
Whereas people jump automatically to what's going to make me better without working it out at the foundations of their health.
People are always on the hunt for a shortcut.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's so true.
Yeah. So
You mentioned something about B vitamins before, and I found out I have a genetic mutation.
MTHFR?
Yes.
Okay.
And you mentioned one of the things is I can't process folate. So I have to take a methylated folate.
Yep.
And apparently 48% of the population has this. How does that affect the supplements I take or someone else takes?
Yeah, so if we look at the like genetic mutation that you have, which is the MTHFR polymorphism, I'm not going to say what people call it.
I will. We call it the motherfucker gene.
There you go.
Spoken about this before.
So the number one issue in this subset of the population is that they can't convert folic acid into the active form of folate, and not all supplements consist of the active form. So like if you look at some vitamins on the shelf, some of them contain like folic acid in very high doses, which in your case, it's going to be difficult, very hard for your body to convert that into the active form. And if we have a look at like what are the consequences of low folate? Well, a perfect example would be during pregnancy. If you're not sufficient in folate, that can lead to birth defects and issues with like the quality of the the baby and stuff like that. So in the cognition, but in terms of like folate, what can happen is if you're low in this folate, it can be sort of correlative to something known as homocysteine, which if you're low in this folate over time, this homocysteine can build up and that increases your risk for like cardiovascular disease, Alzheimer's, and other issues like that. So if you had not found that out and you were going for years and years and years without knowing, and the only way you could know, luckily how did you first hear about it anyway?
I have a brilliant kinesiologist and chiropractor
Yeah.
who initially it was for a cortisol test, and then he's like, I'm just going to send you off for a methylation test. And then I got that back done. And I told my siblings that I had it, and I have to go get a blood test done to check my homeocysteine levels because exactly the same thing. He's like, it can create inflammation, it can create cancers, it can create disease. And my dad has heart disease. My dad's on blood pressure medication. And so I'm like, imagine if all my dad needed was to take this other amino acid to counteract the homeocysteine levels in his body, and then his body would be operating at a more optimum performance.
Yep.
That's how easy it is. And that's why I said it's so important for people to go get their methylation process checked, because as my doctor was saying, he's like, it affects your melatonin production, it affects your all my neurotransmitters.
Massively.
And he's like, a lot of people with anxiety and depression, they don't actually have anxiety and depression. It's just that they cannot create the neurotransmitters enough for their body.
Yeah.
But is that because you went to Steve?
Yep.
A normal doctor wouldn't tell her.
No,
go
and that's
get that.
that's the thing.
Okay,
like,
that's scary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so now I'm able to supplement, and I'm sure there's a lot of things that I will learn from you that I can supplement as well, but I'm not just taking a normal B vitamin. I'm taking a specific B vitamin that will then help process and build those neurotransmitters for me. I'm not eating fortified foods that have folate in them.
Yeah.
But it's an interesting space.
It's good that we're talking about it here because, hopefully your audience will actually recognize the importance of it. And like, if we look 5 years ago, like I knew about this 5 years ago when I was studying naturopathy. Like we learnt about it, and back then no one was talking about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, thankfully, like it's being mentioned by Gary Brecker and some other like health influencers, and now people are aware of it, and it goes to show the power of nutrients and the power of like dialing in your nutrition and vitamin status. Because like you said, anxiety could be a chemical. A lot of the time it can be like a neurotransmitter imbalance. If you're not able to physically produce these neurotransmitters, how are you going to get on top of your anxiety? Or how are you going to regulate your mood? Whereas like somebody who doesn't have that polymorphism, they've got no issues.
And this is something that you speak very well about and have claimed the term cosmetic neurology.
Yeah.
You say that there's an ability to manipulate your feelings just through supplementation.
Yes, and that's like that phrase, cosmetic neurology, was actually the title of a course that I developed early on because I was like, I'm so passionate about this topic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's such a hyper niche thing. Looking back from a marketing perspective, like 0.1% of the population was interested in that. 'Cause it's so
Yeah, but like for me, cosmetic, give me
Yeah.
Botox, give me all those
I
things.
know,
But
seriously.
I think for me and a lot of my friends now, it's like I've got friends on medications, like anti-anxiety medications. I've got friends that we're like, I just want to feel better.
Yeah.
And knowing that you actually have the power to feel better by supplementing a few things, but it's just people don't know what to supplement.
Yeah, well, this will sort of break down like cosmetic neurology in my eyes is exactly that. It's harnessing the power of like specific supplements, compounds, peptides, drugs, and things that can basically manipulate these neurotransmitters to your favor. So we're at the stage now where we actually understand this is what dopamine does, this is what serotonin does, this is what histamine does, this is what acetylcholine does, this is what GABA does, this is what erection does. Like, we understand these neurotransmitters because they're being studied very heavily, and we also know ways to manipulate them.
For people listening, what's the difference between
Yeah,
dopamine and serotonin, two of the big ones?
this is we have to define this before we move forward. So dopamine is the neurotransmitter of wanting, like the want to achieve, the want to accomplish, the want to
Scroll TikTok.
yeah. It's oftentimes associated with like the pursuit of pleasure.
Okay. So that's when people say social media is a dopamine
Oh, yeah,
hit.
true.
Completely.
Yep.
Don't like.
It's a pleasure. You get a pleasurable hit from it.
So the little tricky thing here is the actual like rewarding effects. A lot of the rewarding effects is actually mediated or governed by the opioid system.
Oh.
So you've heard of codeine, morphine,
Yeah.
these painkillers. They're actually comfort creators. They create.
And we create that naturally
In our
within our body.
body.
Well, we produce endogenous opioids. The body.
Did not know that.
What's the main one that we produce?
That's crazy.
There is one endogenous dynorphin. Endorphins is the body's. Look at the name, endorphin.
Yeah.
Is the body's natural, like, pleasure rewarding molecule. But looking at dopamine, serotonin. So, like, let's say dopamine, we've established that it's like motivation. If somebody's really apathetic, or like indifferent, or they just can't be bothered, that typical procrastination state where they just would rather be on the couch watching TV and just like chilling out. Usually those individuals have low dopamine. Like they just can't get shit done. People with high serotonin. So if we look at serotonin, this is the most controversial neurotransmitter, and this is something I've spoken heavily about. Serotonin is not necessarily a neurotransmitter that we want to increase.
Oh.
Yeah, it's actually serotonin can do a range of different things. Number one, it can slow down metabolism. So if you've got high levels of serotonin in your brain,
Slow
it
metabolism.
can decrease thyroid hormone output. It can increase prolactin, and prolactin can affect fertility. And serotonin basically creates this state of hibernation.
So serotonin, when you go to a workout and you feel really good, is that serotonin or is that dopamine?
It'd be a mixture
Okay.
of different. You'd still be releasing serotonin, but I think for some people, if people want to just test out, hey, do I have too much serotonin?
Yeah.
They can do it with food.
Okay.
So they can go get some turkey and eat some turkey and white rice.
Yep.
And tell me how you feel after that meal. Do you feel like more energetic or more vibrant, or do you feel like you want to go lie down on the couch?
What's the difference?
Yeah.
What's the difference?
Yeah. So
between-
if they feel low,
So if they eat the meal that's high, if they eat turkey and rice and they feel sleepy and tired, they've got too much serotonin.
wow.
If they eat the meal and they feel like great and vibrant, they don't have enough serotonin. Like it's a food way to check that. It's not actually like you can do it through supplements. You can take 5-HTP,
Oh, yep.
which is used to counteract, come downs from illicit drugs. A lot of people use that post, rave or post clubbing stuff.
Yeah.
If they take 5-HTP, just subjectively analyze your behaviors. Like, do you feel more motivated? Are you more like inclined to get work done? If not, then maybe you don't need more serotonin. The other way to test dopamine, how do you go when you drink coffee? Do you feel better, more motivated? Coffee is more dopaminergic. It's more like, excitatory and stuff like that.
So if you feel excited after a coffee, you've got too much dopamine?
It's well, if you feel like it's pushing you in the right direction that you want to go in, and you feel actually better after coffee, then you probably have low dopamine.
Oh.
Yeah.
Then how can you say you've done those tests? How do I increase my dopamine naturally?
Yeah. So this there's a few things you can do, and I've created like heaps of YouTube videos on this topic, so I know it's like inside out. So there's a few things you can do. Number one is you can try the amino acid L-tyrosine, which you see it's not in any of these products, but like different pre-workouts.
Yep.
They
Yeah,
put
I've
them in
seen it.
pre-workouts.
Yeah.
Yep.
L-tyrosine, if somebody's what I call a virgin to tyrosine, like they've never tried it before, and they take it, it's a good way for them to see like, oh, this is what dopamine feels like. Like if I want to manipulate dopamine, I want to boost dopamine, I'm going to try 500 milligrams to 1,000 milligrams of L-tyrosine on an empty stomach and subjectively see how you feel.
So is L-tyrosine a building block for dopamine?
Yes, yeah. So it's a great way of explaining it. So L-tyrosine is a foundational building block for dopamine production. And the good thing about it is that, we're consuming L-tyrosine from everyone. If anyone's eaten today, like if you've had, what did you have for breakfast, for example?
Yogurt and fruit.
So in the yogurt, you would have had a small amount of L-tyrosine.
Okay.
Like it's found in, and what did you have?
I had some Ezekiel bread with the almond butter and a protein shake.
So the protein shake for sure
Would have had it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the difference is when you're having it in these foods, it's competing with all the other amino acids. That's why if you take it in isolation, like just by itself, that's where you really get the dopamine feeling from.
And I suppose if you don't have the best gut health, none of those nutrients will be absorbed anyway.
Yeah, and that's where as a naturopath, all we ever talked about was poop
Yeah.
Yeah.
and gut health.
Yeah.
Because the gut is the second brain.
Well, we had that conversation with Nat Kringoudis the other week, and she was saying where it all starts is with your bowel movements, especially when it comes to estrogen, because
Binds or something.
it binds excess estrogen and then it passes out.
Yeah.
So if you're not pooing enough, that means that you got heavy loads of hormones that you don't necessarily need.
Oh, spot on, yeah. One actual little tip there, I don't know if she's mentioned this, but raw carrot salad.
Oh, no.
I've seen that on TikTok.
Yeah, it's inspired by my favourite doctor who unfortunately passed away last year from America. It's grated carrot salad.
Yeah.
So if you do, that can help to flush out estrogen from the body.
Just grated carrot, no lemon, nothing.
I think with some apple cider
With a bit of
vinegar.
apple cider vinegar.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
You can. I mean, the quality of your poops after that is just phenomenal.
Wow.
That's crazy.
Going back to brain, so we've got dopamine and serotonin. GABA.
Yes. Okay. So the best way to explain GABA is to think about how you feel after you drink alcohol.
Like shit.
Well, I'm sober at the moment. so-
Yeah. Well, what period? Like right after you have alcohol or the next day?
Let's say you're at a bar and
Okay.
you've gone out and you've had, let's say this is vodka.
Okay.
And I'm
Yeah.
having, let's say, vodka.
I feel more happy, up and
Oh,
about,
yeah,
more
happy, yeah,
confident.
yeah.
Confident,
Yeah.
socially, verbally fluent. It's a social lubricant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's easy to chat with people.
Yep.
It's easy to break the ice.
It's like confident.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yep.
confidence. And so we obviously early on when I was getting into cosmetic neurology, I was like, shit, I need more GABA because I'm just too intense.
Oh, wow.
Like to chill you out.
Yeah, I was when I would go out to clubs or parties and stuff to meet people, I would just be extremely intense. I just can't relax and enjoy a conversation. It's nice to meet you and all that.
Yeah.
It's great to actually the desire to connect.
Yep.
Whereas I think before that I was actually probably higher in the neurotransmitter glutamate, which is the opposite to GABA. If you have too much glutamate, you're paranoid, anxious, irritable, on edge. But if you look at GABA, alcohol is not the only way to increase GABA. Thankfully, there's so many cool ways
So
to do it.
alcohol increases GABA.
Yeah, so alcohol basically mimics GABA in the body.
So what's some more natural things that will increase GABA?
So one particular amino acid that I've spoken about on probably 50 podcasts is the amino acid taurine.
Okay.
Ah,
I've
yeah.
seen that at the
Yeah.
supplement place.
So taurine, funnily enough, is found in Red Bull.
Oh.
So Red Bull contains taurine. They use 1,000 milligrams of taurine.
1,000.
People think that they add taurine to the Red Bull because it gives you more energy. It's actually the reason they add it in there is because Red Bull contains caffeine, and they use the taurine to dampen to dampen the anxiety that you would get from caffeine.
That is smart.
Yeah.
Why does caffeine give you anxiety?
Because caffeine does the exact opposite and it blocks GABA. So caffeine accelerates dopamine and norepinephrine and adrenaline, but it actually blocks GABA. And that's why you need to balance it out with taurine and it gives you that both. You get the dopamine and the GABA. When you have both dopamine and GABA, you can just conquer the world.
Wow, that's crazy.
So if someone's listening and they're a highly anxious person, what would they, and say they're medicated, what is generally high or low within their brains?
So, like, let's say you mean medicated with like a benzo, like a Valium.
Like an anti-
Yeah,
yeah.
like,
So in that case, if they're using like a benzodiazepine or like a Xanax or whatever you want to, like they're benzodiazepines, basically, typical scenario would be that they're like very dominant in glutamate and they're just not producing enough GABA. That could be due to vitamin deficiency. They could have vitamin B6 deficiency, and that alone can lower GABA. They could have a magnesium deficiency.
oh, wow.
And that alone can lower GABA. So if you could imagine if they corrected those deficiencies before going on the medication, would they have even needed the medication?
Yeah. That's like just putting a Band-Aid on,
Yeah.
like, which is what a
Western
lot of,
medicine
yeah.
does.
Yeah.
How many building blocks go into all these? So you're saying GABA, that you need
Dopamine, serotonin.
all these other things to build it. Is it 3 or 4 like amino acids they need to build these specific neurotransmitters, or is it like 100 and you actually don't know what's the missing link?
It's a really smart question. It's actually really like, in order to figure that out, it's challenging to know exactly what you need to use to specifically increase or decrease certain neurotransmitters. I use taurine as an example, but like if you look at GABA, there are specific herbs that can also increase GABA.
Oh, wow.
So I'm a big fan. I mean, I studied naturopathy, so I love
Yeah.
herbal medicine. I sometimes forget that I studied like that many different herbs.
Yeah.
I love hearing about herbal medicine
Yeah.
too, so it's interesting.
I just completely like a good example that we can use for the audience is like something called passion flower. So passion flower tea can actually help to, help modulate and balance the GABA to glutamate ratio. And it's very smart in the way that these herbs are so intelligent. The way that they interact with the body, like big pharma really just, in some scenarios, it's very difficult for them to like understand how the heck is this even doing that? Like, because the thing is with herbs, you're looking at thousands of different compounds within the herb. So let's say this is passion flower tea. It's not just like one ingredient. There's like all these like flavonoids and different like constituents that are found in the herb, which like would positively affect one pathway and stop the negative effect in another pathway. So another great example would be L-theanine from green tea.
Yeah.
That's another one that's so good for like reducing that anxiousness and the nervousness. But there's a range of different things people can do to increase GABA.
If someone was listening and they wanted to try a herb, where would you get that tea from? It's definitely not in Woolworths.
There's a few vendors that I work closely with.
Okay.
One of them, because about 80% of my clients are from the US.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I actually use a lot of US companies. There is one that ships to Australia, Nootropics Depot.
Okay.
Nootropicsdepot.com, they're pretty good. And then also, actually a company in Australia, herbosophy.com.au.
Okay.
They're pretty good. But like when it comes to like quality supplements, I mean, it's probably the most, like the biggest scam industry is like as a whole, because there's so many supplements that pretend they actually contain certain like vitamins on the label, but what's actually inside is not what's on the label.
Yeah.
So it's really important to use trusted brands like Thorn, Life Extension, Now Foods, Jarrows, and soon to be my own supplement.
Oh,
Yay.
that's exciting.
Yeah, so that's what I was in Gold Coast yesterday.
Yeah.
So,
Can you talk a bit more about this, or is it
I'd
on the
love to.
D-Low?
I'd
Yeah,
love to.
please, because I would love to hear about it too.
So I'm planning on releasing a supplement range.
Okay.
We're looking at getting it manufactured in Utah in the
Yep.
US, purely because in terms of like the regulatory systems there, it's a lot more like lenient in terms compared to the TGA.
Yep.
And my mission is to bring out like we're going to start with one product, it's a huge capital outlay. It's going to be over 150K just to
Yeah.
get it off the ground.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much going to self-fund it as well. So it's like I've worked really hard to get to this point. And basically, I want to create a range of products that can really help with so many different areas of health, like looking at a sleep product, a men's health, testosterone booster, a nootropic, a brain health supplement.
Oh, wow.
So we're still in the process of figuring out a name for that
Yeah.
as well.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
When you say nootropic for brain health, is that like a herb that you mean that?
Yeah.
Okay. And do herbs act the same way as adaptogens, say a reishi or a ashwagandha?
Good question.
Okay. So if we look at herbal medicine, a certain category of herbal medicine is adaptogens.
Okay.
So like adaptogens are considered herbs most of the time.
Okay.
So reishi, rhodiola, ashwagandha, ginseng,
What's that? Cordyceps.
Cordyceps.
Yeah. Also,
Lion's mane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
cordyceps and I we've got a strong relationship.
Really?
You
Is
love
that
them?
the energy one?
Yeah.
The cordyceps is the energy one, isn't it?
Okay.
Yeah.
That one, I mean, I used cordyceps for about 2.5 years straight
Wow.
when I was playing.
Why?
I was playing professional
Energy.
Okay.
Yeah.
For energy.
soccer for energy and lung
Stamina
capacity.
stuff.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so like I could breathe a lot better when I was using cortisol.
Can you overdose on these adaptogens?
You can, but it's very like their toxicity profile is very low.
Okay.
So you can. I was using it. I mean, I was using it for like a year straight, doing blood testing and.
Oh, it's fine.
It was
Yeah.
fine,
Yeah.
like, no issues. Cordyceps is one of those. If you're an athlete looking for better endurance and stamina and being able to breathe better,
I've read this. Yeah.
yeah, cordyceps is awesome.
Yeah.
What about a adaptogen to balance your mood?
Rhodiola,
Okay.
Rhodiola rosea is quite good for that. It's got more of a not a tranquilizing effect, but it's very it's very balancing. If you're overexcited, it'll bring you down. If you're lacking enthusiasm, it'll bring you up. So
Wow.
it's very modulating in that regard.
And is that how adaptogens work? Whatever you're lacking in, it will manipulate and help build that hormone for what you need.
Yeah, so the thing is with adaptogens, they're so intelligent in the sense that they're able to bring things down when they're too high or bring things up when they're too low. So it could be modulating cortisol, it could be helping with the immune system, because the immune system can get out of balance as well. So that it has like an immune regulatory effect. And if we look at like the stress response curve, adaptogens can really help to like shut off over stress states. Like for example, let's just say, I don't know, you've experienced something really traumatic, like something really intense.
Yeah.
But your body is still pumping, like your heart's beating, and it's just constantly on edge after a traumatic experience, and it just won't switch back to a normal state. That's where adaptogens can like come in and like stop the stress response and like minimize it from going too far. It'll just bring it back down to like normality.
What would be a great adaptogen for that?
There's a few, I mean, ginseng, like a few different types of ginseng. There's one, American ginseng is pretty good for that.
Oh, really?
So it's not stimulatory, it's more relaxing. So it helps to balance moods and stuff. So American ginseng is pretty good for that. There's a few others. Ashwagandha is heavily used. My video's gone viral about ashwagandha.
Ashwagandha, what's that one? The relaxed one.
Ashwagandha is the one that's very calming and stops the stress response. But my videos have gone viral because I'm talking about a nasty side effect that it can cause.
What is that?
It can induce a state known as anhedonia, which is it's not good. It can cause like you can't experience pleasure.
Oh.
Yeah, so like it has a blunting effect on the pleasure response, so you can't like enjoy feel like the physical feeling of like eating chocolate or even like sexual satisfaction, like orgasming. It can blunt all of those.
So
effects.
too much of that can have that side effect.
Yeah.
Why would
Wow.
someone want to take ashwagandha?
It's in a lot of things, isn't it?
Oh yeah. If they're really on edge and they're really, really stressed and they just can't switch off, ashwagandha can like build it's sort of like, it's like building a bigger cup. So you can tolerate more
Okay.
stress.
Okay, yeah. Because I feel like it's in all those new like health supplements
Yeah,
everywhere. And I'm like, I look at it, I'm like, oh, it must be good.
Everything has a moment. Back in the day when we were younger, it was like chia seeds, then goji berries.
Yeah,
then
true.
It's
That's true.
There's always the next superfood.
Yeah. Can you see anything? Obviously, you're in this space in the industry. Can you see anything that's going to be trending in the next year?
Yeah, so this is it's a great question. This is something that I like pride myself on, is having, because the thing is, the way I perceive myself is like I'm the influencer of influencers.
Okay.
I'm the guy who brings brand new things to the market, or brings new like ingredients. Like I'm the one who pioneers that.
Trendsetter
Yeah,
in the space.
it's a good supplement.
Yeah.
Actually.
Yeah.
Trendsetter supplements.
I'll take commission on that one. No.
It's something that the reason I say that is because I'm very fortunate, because I've been mentored
Yeah.
for the last 3 years by, shout out to Sean. Well, he's the world's greatest formulator. He's actually patented like 13 different
Oh,
ingredients.
amazing.
He's taken me under his wing 3 years ago. So we've been working really closely together. One of my ultimate legacy goals, like I want to do this before I die, is I want to release my own ingredient, like discover
wow.
a new ingredient and bring it to the market.
Wow.
So I want to bring my own like it could be like an energy supplement,
Yep.
or like a fat loss ingredient.
Kind of
A
like the
natural one, or
bulletproof
make
guy,
it
how he's
yourself?
done like
Like,
bulletproof.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's smart.
That's a legacy goal, but yeah, just really, really passionate about. Let's just say in the next year or so, like to
Yeah.
answer your question. So, in the next year or so, one thing that I can see being extremely popular. Let's say, okay, we'll use this as an example, because I can already predict that it's going to just take off.
Okay.
It's called paraxanthine,
Okay.
and that's going to be you've heard of caffeine?
Yes.
Yeah.
Caffeine's
Yeah.
in coffee. A caffeine, when you ingest something that has caffeine, it actually gets broken down into 3 different metabolites. Number 1 is theophylline. Number 2 is theobromine, which is in dark chocolate.
Okay.
If you've heard of theobromine. And then number 3 is paraxanthine. Paraxanthine we can now extract from caffeine, and we can actually take it as an energy supplement.
Oh, wow.
And this is going to be completely change the game for like energy drinks. The reason being, it doesn't possess the same like anxiety effects that caffeine has. It won't affect blood pressure or heart rate,
Wow.
but it'll still give you the kick in energy that you're looking
Yeah.
for. So paraxanthine, just keep an eye out for that ingredient.
That's interesting. I'm going to remember that. So like when you have like a Red Bull, or sometimes I'm like, oh, my heart's beating really fast. I'm like,
Yeah.
so it has the opposite effect.
Yeah. So it maintains the benefits and minimizes the side effects.
Wow.
So it doesn't affect your like cortisol, nervous
or your
system.
sleep and all that kind of stuff.
Wow,
Yeah.
interesting.
That's crazy. Anything else?
Yeah.
What about anti-aging?
Anti-aging.
Because do you know what? I was listening to a podcast the other day, and there's a trend in the beauty space now where a lot of women are getting their fillers taken out of their face and going down more of a natural
Aging.
supplement aging kind of road.
NMN, we discussed it.
Yeah, true. But but I feel like that was
There's a hyaluronic acid. Are you familiar with hyaluronic acid?
yes.
Profilo.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've inquired already.
I've actually already had it.
Really? Did you like it? I inquired, but
Is
then I
that
felt pregnant.
Is that a natural?
It's a very it's a high molecular weight. It's
Alex talks about it.
purely just like
Hyaluronic acid.
It's
Yeah.
like, it's very safe. It's got a good safety profile.
That's what she asked me last week. I was like, I don't want it yet.
I know. I'm like waiting till I birth this baby.
It's
and
from
I'm like,
Italy. I mean,
yeah. Well, that's true.
They're not
Yeah.
gonna get it right.
So, and they just inject hyaluronic acid into your face, and then it gives you.
I must admit, I got it done purely as just an experiment.
Yeah.
My friend's a cosmetic. He just gave it to me. I'm like, all right, whatever. I'll give it a
Try it,
shot, give
yeah.
it a shot. I think I'm not a good candidate because I'm young, fit, and
Yeah.
like, I don't really have skin issues or like
Fine
that.
lines.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The plumpness or whatever you're looking for. But give it a shot. Like,
Yeah.
see how you go. It's that
But it
seems
was
pretty promising.
Yeah, it was interesting because they were literally saying a lot of women are going down that road, and I'm like, that's a good business, something there for you.
What about, you spoke about that pea supplement, you think? What about in the terms of the nootropics and the herbal medicine? Do you see anything trending? Because my TikTok algorithm keeps
Are you talking
getting
about
me.
like Chinese medicine and stuff?
Yeah, like for me, something that I Googled the other day was pine needle tea.
Yeah, yeah.
Pine needle tea.
That's for. Do you know what that's for?
Well, like I saw it and I was like, oh, inflammation. It was for certain things. Like I think it was really high vitamin D as well, like for
Are
immunity.
we allowed to say the C word, the virus on here?
Can't
Oh
say.
yes,
Yep.
absolutely.
Okay, well, pine needle tea there's some pretty impressive research to suggest that it can like minimize the damaging effects of the spike protein
Of the
the virus.
the injection.
Or the actual virus.
the virus itself.
Ah.
Yeah, I think but in terms of, so you're saying like compounds that can help with like brain function?
No, I'm saying like I think for me personally, that's probably a tea you might see, like how you saw white tea trend for a bit or something. There's
Nettle teas also trended a little bit.
yeah, I even like Irish sea moss. There's a huge movement of that amongst
the stuff
girls.
that you take?
Yeah, but it's also like Hailey Bieber put it in her smoothie at Erewhon.
Yeah,
They
sea moss
charge
is having a moment.
$60 for a jar of it in America,
Yeah.
like because people say it's a beauty supplement, so that's why they
Yeah. That's actually a good example because that is literally having
Everywhere.
a moment on
It's
TikTok
gone
and
viral.
females,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah, CMOS. I've had a podcast. Yeah, I've done a podcast on CMOS as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, some pretty cool. Like, I mean, humans in general. Most of us don't consume enough iodine-rich foods, and CMOS is abundant in iodine. Like, how many people eat seaweed every week? Like, not
many.
Not many.
Yeah.
Unless you're living in Japan or like
Yeah.
eating sushi all the time. Like, yeah, I personally consume seaweed like 2 or 3 times a week. Those seaweed packs, you know.
Oh,
those-
yeah,
they're actually quite nice.
They're delicious. Yeah.
But in terms of things that are trending, I think probably like magnesium L3, like an advanced form of magnesium called magnesium L-threonate.
Okay.
That's somewhat popular at the moment.
Yeah.
But what's popular in my space
Yeah.
is like it could be very different to like what your
No, but I like to hear
Algorithm.
this. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's popular in your space?
In my space, what's popular are the herbs that can make men hard.
Oh, really? That's so funny. I was listening to Uninspired, Unemployed the other day, and they were talking about this tablet that he took to like get hard because he couldn't get hard.
Well, you are a balls expert. Let's just say that.
I've got the title Ice Over Balls guy.
Yep, you started the trend of guys icing their balls.
Yeah.
Wait, why?
Yeah, so this is the reason for that. So the premise is like men should ice their testes to boost testosterone.
Interesting.
And to help with fertility. So, for example, there's been couples that I've literally worked with where all I've suggested to the man is ice your balls 2 times a day for 10 minutes, and they literally fell pregnant.
No
for like 6
way.
weeks. Yeah.
Because for people listening, there is a epidemic of low fertility when it
Yeah.
comes to men happening at the moment.
I call it the mandemic.
Yep.
So, like men in general, their fertility counts dropping significantly, very, very fast. And like, there's a quote that's like, in 35 years from now, most men in the Western world will be infertile.
Yeah, I've seen something like that.
Why?
Like plastic bottles, like eating from. That's not the only reason.
Some undies
Nat
that you wear.
Cream
Yeah.
Judas was saying
Whatever
about
guys
plastics.
call them.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
Polyester.
Yeah.
Polyester.
Some of the fabric.
creates electrostatic shock
Yeah.
that actually can heat up the testes. And anytime your balls are too hot as a guy, it's gonna affect fertility. It's
You
gonna
cook
affect,
your sperm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't cook your balls.
Yeah,
Yeah.
don't cook your balls.
Wow.
That's so crazy. And then, like, my Chinese doctor said, like, when I was trying to fall pregnant, she's like, if you're having trouble, bring your partner in because it probably could be him.
Yeah.
And make sure no drugs, no alcohol. Like, the healthier he is, the more fertile he is.
This is, I think, what's happening in medicine when it comes to fertility and men. The outlying numbers of what makes a fertile man is dropping. We had
Yeah.
breakfast with a girlfriend the other day, and I think she said if a guy has a 2% sperm count, they're classified as fertile.
Jeez.
Who said that?
That's terrible.
Tara.
Oh yeah, she did too. That's crazy.
And so
So guys, if you're listening, ice your balls two times a day for 10 minutes.
But, well, is that maybe, because that's also a trend, is that maybe why there's, I don't want to say there's not manly men out there, but there's different men this generation.
What do you mean?
I see a huge
I
movement.
don't actually understand what you're saying.
There's like,
I'm not going to say it.
do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I
of
don't.
course.
Say it again.
What we've all had people come over and they've had you've had this problem too.
Don't tell me. I think I know what you're getting at. Okay, just go. I'm gonna go red.
Guys go, shit, I'm sorry, this has never happened before.
Like the uninspired, unemployed guy. Yeah. Thanks for throwing me under the bus. Damien was before you anyway. Sorry.
No,
He
but
doesn't
we
listen.
have. And
Yeah, no, it's true.
It's like, as girls, we talk and it's come a little bit more common.
Yeah. Also fucks with the girl's confidence too.
It does F with the girls because
Yeah.
we don't think we turn on the guy then if they can't get
true.
hard.
Yeah.
Well, it's a common, I mean, we're seeing guys like very young now, like early 20s relying upon like Viagra. or
What?
stuff. Yeah, just to achieve an erection. Like
Yeah.
Fuck, that's young.
It's a big, big problem.
Yeah. Literally.
Yeah.
And this is where like something like the icing can like really help. Like it's not like it's a non-drug intervention to help with like general libido, sexual functioning, sex drive, motivation.
Is it a blood flow problem or a hormonal problem?
So it can be a lot of the time it can be like low testosterone, so it could be like a hormonal deficiency. If there's a circulation issue, that's usually in the older like 30, 40 plus. But if we look at things that increase blood flow, like rocket, arugula,
Really?
Oh, wow.
so high in blood flow boosting,
Did not know that.
high in nitrates, so it's like great before sex.
Didn't know that.
Beetroot's also really good as well because
Yep.
it's helping with circulation. But I think like the main issue that men are facing now is like instead of addressing their low testosterone, they're reliant upon medications just to like perform in the bedroom, and that can be like it would be a terrible scenario for a guy to feel
Absolutely.
like they're reliant upon something just to feel like a man. And like you said before, I mean, we're seeing a massive decline in like men that are like there aren't many men left that are like actually like doing shit in the world, being productive, like who have a lot of resilience, who have a lot of confidence, motivation, drive, like actually building something and being productive in society.
Yeah.
There's just not many of them.
Is there long-term effects with men that take Viagra? Like young kids?
I think there's like a mild dependency
Yeah.
that can potentially occur. There is major side effects associated with not treating the low testosterone.
I was going to say, how does
Oh.
a guy know if they've got low testosterone?
The only way in the 2024 is to do a blood test.
Oh, wow.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so there's no other way. You have to do it like a blood test.
But then this is where it gets tricky because doctors will be like, oh, your testosterone's fine. But in your eyes, it might be like, damn, mate, you're low.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the reference range for men is 200 all the way to about 1,000. So anywhere in that range is considered normal. So when I went on a mission to boost my testosterone as high as possible, I got it
Yeah.
to 988.
Whoa.
Which is like on the top end of the range. And I was like, I
I'm a
talk,
manly man.
Yeah.
I talk a lot about like, you have to, if I'm going to be in this space, I have to be able to walk the walk.
Yeah,
and do
absolutely.
it myself. But guys coming to me like in their 300, 400 reference range, like they don't feel
Good.
Good.
Like
Yeah.
even though their doctor will say their results are normal, it's just like with women as well, like progesterone, estrogen. Like if you don't have enough progesterone, like you're not going to feel relaxed, calm, things like that. So it's the same goes.
How did you go about building your testosterone?
Yeah, so actually there's a whole sequence of different things that I implemented from a nutrition, lifestyle, icing, exercise. Actually, we'll go into a few of the things. If people want to like delve into it from full detail, I've got like a course that I've developed on that specific topic.
Oh, wow.
It's called thelimitlesscourse.com.
Yep.
So if anyone, it's like $50. It's phenomenal value. Like you get all the insights into like what I did for that. But like definitely doing weight training. Like if guys that weight train, generally speaking, have high levels of testosterone, 2 to 3 times a week doing like full body lifting, like compound movements. Do not do extremely long duration cardio.
It's like a running for like 20 kilometers.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a great way to lower testosterone.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Like marathon, look at a marathon runner
Yeah.
and look at a sprinter. Like, which one do you think has higher testosterone?
Sprinter. Matt
Yeah.
Shervington.
Yeah.
So they have like, you know, they're adapting to the type of exercise they're doing, and they're really that sort of activity where it's like short duration but very high intensity, like HIIT training, is the best.
Wow.
It's crazy. And what about diet?
Yeah, so people will be somewhat surprised when it comes to like nutrition. I'm not that strict in terms of like, you'd think as a naturopath, this guy's like, oh, he's dialed in everything. Like,
I was actually going to ask you this
Yeah.
too
this
about
guy must
diet.
be so
yeah.
orthorexic. Like all he does
Yeah.
is care about his health. I'm not super strict in that regard. Like I'm pretty, like I still enjoy like, depends what you consider like a cheat meal.
Yeah.
But I definitely enjoy my food.
Yeah.
So the sort of diet that I followed, it was definitely quite high in meats.
Okay.
Steak. I was having a lot of steak, eggs, butter, olive oil, ghee, avocados, macadamias, almonds. Like
It's a lot of fat.
Lots of good quality fats.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was definitely not avoiding any carbs. So I was having quite a lot of like sourdough bread.
Wow.
Shout out to what's it called? Wood frog.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Wood frog, and what's the other one? There's another one down near where I live. So sourdough bread, white rice,
Yeah.
and plenty of berries.
Berries.
Yeah.
Why white rice over brown?
That's a good question because I would have said brown.
Yeah.
So it's a myth that brown rice is healthier.
Is it? Fuck.
So
Really?
well, okay. First of all, brown rice is more likely to have heavy metals than white rice. In terms of, because it's got the outer husk, it actually
Yes.
concentrates the heavy metals. And secondly, I actually digest white rice better than brown rice because the brown rice is a lot heavier, more difficult to digest. And I think it's like in China, they actually give the brown rice to the peasants and the white rice to the kings.
Wow.
Oh, that's interesting. But there's certain types of white rice. It was like basmati, jasmine. What would be the best?
So leaning towards like the long grain,
Yeah, so-
like long grain basmati white rice tastes amazing.
Yeah, it's
Like,
good.
How can you not enjoy that?
Yeah.
And if you have that with like, I'll have a lot of onions and carrots and like mix that into a stir fry, add a protein sauce. Like I could eat that pretty much every day.
Yeah. Okay. What would be your cheat meal? Are we talking like pizza, pasta? Are we talking about McDonald's? Like,
I would never-
how dirty are we getting?
Good one.
All right, so probably like a guilty pleasure that I was doing quite a lot. I've pulled back on now.
Okay.
Do you know those Belvita biscuits?
Oh yeah. Yeah. In the yellow
Oh,
packet.
yes. Yeah.
And they're like milk chocolate with
Yeah.
or honey and choc. I'd just have like a whole box. Just,
Oh wow.
yeah, just smash it out, and then I'll just like train my ass off after it.
Oh well, if you're training
Yeah,
straight
true.
away, you're
Oh, yeah,
burning
yeah.
it straight away. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
So we're a sweet tooth, not a savoury.
I'm just like my dad. I got a sweet tooth.
Yeah. It's interesting.
The
isn't
final
it?
thing when it comes to diet, liver.
To eating liver. I told you I can't do it.
I-
I'm also
I've been-
not a fan.
No,
of,
I
like,
can't.
consuming it, but
Yeah.
I know that there's so many health benefits.
Yep.
One of the most nutrient dense foods on the planet.
Yeah.
If people don't like to consume it in their diet, they can have it through supplemental form. You know, there's like plenty of liver supplements on the market. Amazing for immune health, like got your vitamin A, huge amounts of vitamin A, heaps of iron and heaps of copper. And the copper helps to absorb the iron. B12, like it's a nutrient powerhouse. You could call it like a superfood. But I'm actually more of a fan of like chicken hearts.
Oh,
Have you ever
okay.
tried
I didn't know you
those?
could eat
No,
chicken
but
hearts.
it's big in Asia.
They taste incredible. If you have it like lightly fried with like a bit of grass-fed butter, it's phenomenal.
Really?
Yeah. So
What are the
it's-
benefits of chicken hearts?
Well, they contain a lot of coenzyme Q10.
Yep.
which is great for like energy and mitochondrial function and stuff like that. But also it's very high in zinc and vitamin B12.
Oh,
and also
wow.
very high in cholesterol.
And what about oysters?
Yeah, oysters are...
Do you eat
yeah.
oysters?
Yeah, I do. Like probably once every couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Just going out of a restaurant, like
Yeah.
order a couple of oysters. Yeah, they're rich in zinc and they're also like an aphrodisiac as well.
Yeah. You need to go to the South Melbourne market and get them from
Yeah.
there. They're
Yeah.
so good.
Well, I think we're going to have to have you on for a round 2
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
because
it's a lot
you
more.
even just touched then on heavy metals, and I'm like, oh, I want to talk about heavy metals. I want to talk about mold toxicity. I want to talk about detoxing.
True. Yeah.
So we definitely have to have you on for a round 2, but that was so interesting. And then
Yes.
people can ask what they want to know also. Like,
Yeah. If anyone's listening, where can they find you? I know you said you had a YouTube as well.
Yeah, if you can support me by going to my YouTube channel.
Amazing.
It's Boost Your Biology on
Okay.
YouTube. So please go subscribe. I just hit the 50K.
Oh, well
subscribers
done.
last-
Go you.
How
last week, so
good.
yeah.
And Instagram and stuff like that.
Yeah, so they can follow me. You can search my name, Lucas, Lucas, surname Aoun.
Okay.
I'll put it in the footnotes as
Yeah,
well.
one more question. I know you said you have 80% of clients overseas. Was it 80? If someone wanted to work with you, are you taking on new clients?
Yeah. So if they want to reach out,
Okay.
they can just shoot me an email.
Okay.
Tell me about their case or what their goals are, and yeah, we can
Okay.
see what we can do.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
awesome.
Thank
Thanks for having me.
you.
That's awesome.
That was good. I was
Yeah.
like, I'm like,